Let's take a moment to review contact transmission. In this illustration, we're going to see how a germ moves from an infected or colonized resident to another resident by healthcare provider hands. Here we see that the resident and his surroundings are contaminated with a germ, represented by the purple dots. As you learned in Module 1, with colonized or infected residents, germs contaminate the resident's skin, clothes, and the nearby environment. Once a healthcare provider has contact with the resident or surfaces near the resident, they can pick up the germs on their hands. If they fail to perform hand hygiene or do hand hygiene inadequately, they can transmit the germ to another resident. This is contact transmission. Contact precautions are used when a resident has an infection with a germ like norovirus or C. difficile. Contact precautions are used in addition to standard precautions and require healthcare personnel to 1. Put on a gown and gloves before entering the room, 2. Remove gowns and gloves prior to leaving the room and performing hand hygiene, and 3. Dedicate resident care equipment like stethoscopes. In addition, there may be restrictions on movement and participation in activities. For C. difficile and norovirus, use contact precautions and remember to perform hand hygiene with soap and water because alcohol-based hand rubs are not effective against these harmful germs. There are many germs that require residents to be placed on contact precautions. This table describes some of the more commonly encountered germs that require contact precautions and the duration of contact precautions associated with each germ. This is not a complete list of pathogens, so it is important that you review the entire list of germs that require contact precautions. Norovirus is highly contagious and often spreads quickly in nursing home settings. If you have residents or a group of residents with norovirus-like symptoms, they should be placed on contact precautions, ideally in a private room, and restricted to their rooms. All staff and visitors should wear a gown and gloves upon entry and should perform hand hygiene with soap and water only for at least 15 seconds before and after contact with the resident and the resident's environment. It is also important that all environmental surfaces are cleaned using a bleach-based disinfectant. The ideal concentration is a 1 to 10 dilution. It may be necessary during an outbreak to disinfect surfaces up to 3 times a day. Additionally, all healthcare providers with symptoms such as vomiting or diarrhea should be excluded from work until 48 hours after the last symptom. Residents who are placed on contact precautions also play a role in controlling the spread of germs. They should be educated about why they are on contact precautions and the expectations that are required of them. Residents with a disease that is spread by contact may be asked to stay in their room, wash their hands frequently, especially before leaving the room, prior to participating in activities or therapy, before eating and after using the bathroom, and keep personal items like razors and towels to themselves and not share them with other residents.
Previously on Gowns and Gloves. It seems as though a lesson in patience is par for the course, as Mrs. Houston begrudgingly learns good hand hygiene. But while she's washing her hands, it's Dimitri who seems to have something up his sleeve. Will the Houstons get Priscilla back as their nurse? Find out on Gowns and Gloves.
Priscilla, would you mind helping me get Mrs. Houston up so I can change her sheets?
Well, I was just about to go on break.
Come on, there'll be time for a break later.
All right.
Cut. I'm gonna need the content expert in here. Now, if she's infected with MRSA, we can't have the nurses go into Miss Houston's room in this scene.
No, Jacques. You remember from the last episode, Mrs. Houston is only colonized with MRSA in her nose and on her body, so contact precautions aren't necessary. The nurses only need to use standard precautions, which mean they will wash their hands or use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer, wearing gloves, and bagging the sheets and other laundry that they change at her bedside. And you would have known that if you had noticed that there wasn't a sign saying contact precautions on the door.
Okay, well, what happens if and when she becomes infected with MRSA?
Then we will use contact precautions in addition to standard precautions. Contact precautions require that all staff wear gowns and gloves and place a sign like this on the door and making sure that the gloves and the gowns are available at the room entrance.
Oh, yeah, the swimming pool idea. Oh, I get it. If she gets infected, then we go to contact precautions. I get it. All right, let's do it again. Everybody ready? Set and action.
Mr. Houston.
Yep. I told you to call me Dimitri. Hello. Vanessa, have you heard the latest?
No, what's the latest?
Dr. Kennedy just stopped by and told me Elaine has an active MRSA infection.
I'll go get the contact precautions sheets and bring the supplies. Now, in addition to hand washing and gloves, we'll need gowns. But first, I should wash my hands.
Wait, but she hasn't even touched anything yet.
Residents with infection from MRSA and other antibiotic-resistant organisms are more likely to contaminate the environment around. See, every time you touch something, it's a chance to spread the MRSA. Hand washing is the single most effective way to prevent the spread of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Now, the prop guy can put the sign on the door.
Great. Props. And
Looks like we'll be here longer than I thought.
I suppose you will be. But Mrs. Houston's health is the most important thing. Mr. Houston, I mean Dimitri, you're going to need to wear gowns and gloves whenever you're in the room with her. And I'll bring someone in to teach you all about it.
Sounds like a plan.
Oh, Dimitri. You are the sly one. Your MRSA infection ruse may just give me enough time to determine if Priscilla is my granddaughter. After all these years of searching, after all these years of hope.
Elaine, you know I would do anything for you.